everyone. All right, so my name is Justin Emmerich Larkin. That's Eric Davis, Joe Wooding on the camera, Brianna Williams, and we're part of an organization called Project 2050, and we're a Tacoma-based, lots of notes, I see. We're a Tacoma-based non-profit, and we work around education issues, but a lot of social justice issues too. We like to talk about it in terms of equity. And equity is different from equality. Equality is everyone's the same. And equity is about opportunity. It's about making sure that people have what they need. And when we confront issues of the economy, we like to talk in terms of intersection. That nothing exists in a vacuum. Right? Someone's not just poor. Someone's not just white. Someone's not just black. That being poor and black is different than being poor and white. And so your experience of being poor is going to be different based on the color of your skin, just like your experience with the color of your skin is going to be a lot different based on if you pull in $200,000 a year, or you're scraping by making $20,000. And so when we talk about intersections of poverty, we want to talk about intersections with the systems that we exist within, right? And break down what we're talking when we talk about the economy. Because it's not just money, it's not just Wall Street. The stock market is something that, say, CNBC, they like to say, well, the economy's doing good because the stock market's up. That has nothing to do with the economy. And so what we're talking about today is how do we go beyond poverty? How do we challenge the systems that create it? How do we change those systems so that we don't have to deal with that anymore? And poverty being very specifically, if you don't have food, clothing, housing, healthcare, and education, you're in poverty. Actually, I'm going to do this now. Everyone hold up your hands, left to right. It's okay. I like to do the left. And count it out with me. Food, clothing, housing, healthcare, education. Food, say it. Food, clothing, housing, healthcare, education. These are the big five. Food, clothing, housing, healthcare, education. This is it. Everybody needs this to survive. You can't go without food, clothing, housing, healthcare, or education. And so there are a lot of people in America, and they're invisible to us, but they're going hungry. They don't have a house. Right? Maybe they stay in one of those motels that rent for 30 days. Maybe they stay with relatives. Maybe they got to get really creative with their child care. Maybe they're teenagers who have to work. They can't go to school because their family needs their income, so they don't get their house foreclosed on. And so if we want to talk about what this system is, we want to talk about its characteristics. And we want to talk about what those characteristics are, and by observing those characteristics, we can tell the nature of the thing. And so this is a Khopesh. Actually, can you get the mouse off the screen, please?
Sure.
Thank you. And a Khopesh, if I may go back in time into Egyptian culinary history, was a kitchen implement that was used for buttering bread. And you can see by the long curved surface here that was excellent for the large round loaves that the Egyptians used for buttering bread. Does anyone here actually believe me? What is this? It's a sword, and you can tell it's a sword because of a pointy end, because this long sharp edge is used for cutting through people. By observing the characteristics of a thing, you can realize the nature of a thing. And so when we talk about a Khopesh, we can see it's made for killing. And what are the characteristics of the economic system that we call capitalism? Right? Let's call it out. And capitalism is three things. It's for-profit production. That what gets made is what's going to make the people who own those businesses the most money. It's private ownership of those businesses. That all that money, all that value, all those things those factories produce, they go not into the hands of the workers who made it, not into the hands of the community that hosts those factories, but into the hands of the people who on a piece of paper say that they own it. And just for reference, that's 5 white guys in a smoky room in New York, and they own everything. And finally, it's wage labor. And wage labor is saying, well, you know what? When you go to work, you got to work to live. Because if you don't work, you can't buy food, clothing, housing, healthcare, education. You can't pay your rent, you're homeless. You can't pay the clerk at the grocery store, you don't get food. Wage labor is your work to live. You have no right to life. And I want to put that in perspective a little before we move on. Because we often, the word right gets thrown around a lot. Well, I got the right to do whatever I want. No, you don't. All right? You can, for the most part, do whatever you want. When we're talking about rights, we're talking about some really specific things. Like the First Amendment of our Constitution says you have the right to free speech. That means that the government, no matter what it does, cannot tell you what you can and cannot say. And there are some reasonable restrictions on that, like you can't shout fire. Like you couldn't jump out right now and go, fire! And we'll, get this stampede with no fire. You're not allowed to endanger the people with your speech. But a right doesn't need to be explained. You just get it. Just for being alive, you get the right to free speech. You get the right not to have the police haul you away without a warrant. You have the right to be secure in your persons that if they want to search your house, they need a warrant. But if you go to the grocery store and say, I don't have any money, but I'm really hungry, you don't have a right to that food. How is it possible you have the right to speak, but the only right you have with regards to your food is the right to die of hunger? How is it possible that our laws protect the people who own the bread and not the people who need the bread? Wage labor is about there not being a right to be alive. We don't have the right to die. And there's another, I don't know if did anyone go to the right to die presentation? You can't even die in this country if you want to. It's illegal to try to kill yourself. And if you've got a terminal illness and you don't want to eke out the remainder of your life paying someone to keep you alive, you can't do that either. So when we talk about wage labor, we're not talking about, well, what's your paycheck? It's what happens if you don't work? What happens if you can't work? You go into debt, and eventually you die because you couldn't afford the food you needed to stay alive. And so when we talk about for-profit production, we're talking about a system that has brought us to the brink of total environmental collapse. Global warming is at the point where within about 20 years, it's irreversible. Every new model that comes out shows it's happening faster and faster and faster. By, let's say, 2030, we'll be out of luck. The best thing we'll be able to do is redraw the maps and start moving people, because we won't be able to stop the rising tides. How did this happen? How do we get to the point that we were warned back in the 80s that this was going to happen, and we didn't do anything? It's because when the production decisions are made, what do? It's not based on what's good for people. It's what's going to make me the most money. Right here, if it is cheaper to pump the atmosphere full of pollutants and poison our oceans, we'll do it, because it brings me profit right now. And my job as a CEO, if I'm working at, I don't know, what's the name of the BP, the place that poisoned Whatcom Lake? If I'm working at BP, my job is not to keep Whatcom Lake clean. It's to make a lot of money. And it doesn't make me a bad person, all right? The guys who are polluting are not Captain Planet villains. All right, I don't know if any of y'all remember Captain Planet, but there was like a monster pig, and he was like, whoa, I'm going to poison a lake. Nobody does that. That's a cartoon, but we forget that they're just people who got jobs and mortgages and cars that they got to pay off. They're just trying to get by too. And the way they get by is by maximizing profit. And you don't do that by paying a bunch of people to clean up something if you don't have to. And so when you have a for-profit system, you maximize your short-term gain, and quite frankly, to hell with long-term losses. And what is this? Is the salmon fishing shut down this year in the Pacific Northwest?
Oregon and California.
Oregon and California? Yeah. So, don't tell me that this is just the global warming, just part of the cycle. Don't tell me that we can survive this. We have overfished the ocean, and it's not like fish have more babies the fewer of them they are. Right? We are reaching a physical limit. We can't go beyond this without doing irreparable damage to our ecosystem and then to ourselves. We got to this point not by accident, not by random confluence of, oh my God, it just rolled the dice enough times, come up with all ones. People took these resources, they took too much because it made them a lot of money. And the people who made all that money, it wasn't you, it wasn't me, it wasn't the people fishing, it wasn't the people working those factories, it was those 5 white guys in New York. And right now in history, we have the most wealth that has ever been created. In the entirety of human history, we have never had so much. And yet, in the entirety of human history, we have never had so many people die of hunger every year. 11 million people die of starvation every single year. That's the Holocaust. Every single year. And that doesn't count people who die of illnesses related to not having enough food to fight off those infections. That doesn't count the people who die of cholera or dysentery because they can't get the simple medicines they need to survive. Don't tell me the rising tide raises all boats. Because now you can say it all you want, stats prove otherwise. Stats prove that poverty is on the rise. Stats prove that infant mortality is on the rise. Stats prove that